All right, welcome to another edition of Lesson Notes, and today I am bringing you a brand new client, someone that I saw this week for the first time. He's a 2026 graduate, so he's a junior in high school. And he's coming into the session with not a ton of complaint about his ball striking, but not necessarily shooting the scores that he wants. So let's go ahead and play out this video. And obviously you can see before we even start, I've got the ball flight and the TrackMan data, and you can see that this is a very, very big draw. This is a 6-iron that he is hitting here. And so, I think the number one thing to take away from this video is that each swing has a pattern. So in this case, this player is swinging what I would say like excessively left, way too far left. And, to a degree, there's some predictability there. Like he knows the ball is either going to pull, overcut, or it's going to be a nice cut. The issues with that become like the more that I swing left, my dispersion or how far left or right I'm going to hit the ball really, really grows. And so that was kind of the problem that I noticed, on top of a lot of toe contact, because if the club is swinging that far left, you're probably going to get a lot of toe contact. So this yellow line would represent the impact plane. Generally speaking, when I'm looking at a swing on video, I'm usually looking at the impact plane, because that really is what matters, right? At the end of the day, it's just what happens for those few milliseconds when we hit the golf ball. So let's kind of play this out, and we'll see kind of some typical issues that happen with a swing that's too far left. So right off the bat, we can see that the club head, is pretty significantly outside the hands there and above that yellow line. Do you have to be on that yellow line? Absolutely not. But when it comes to identifying things with the idea that someone's swinging too far left, I think that's a place to start. It may be a difference in one of the after videos that you see here. So if we continue playing this up to the top, obviously, that backswing, the lead arm is pretty darn high. There's not a lot of depth to the turn, so there's no daylight between the knees. But could someone have a backswing like this and still hit a draw? Yeah, sure they could. Maybe they wouldn't swing as far left. So all that to say, it doesn't mean that he's going to be hitting a big fade from here. But again, these would be things that if I screenshotted this and posted this on Instagram or on YouTube, I think a majority of people would say, yeah, this looks like he's going to, quote unquote, come over the top. So if we play this down, what you're going to see is that at lead arm parallel, the shaft is parallel to the yellow line, right? We can see that. But it's very, very above that line. And as I already said, that yellow line would represent the impact plane. So that means that shaft is going to have to get to that line. And so how that's going to happen is that's going to have to move very down and very left. So the angle of attack you can see is pretty steep, and the swing direction is massively left. Well, that's really what on TrackMan, that's what this looks like on video, is a very, very steep and left swing. Let me clean this up. And we'll just kind of play that out. As we go down, you can see that's very, very late. And so there's going to have to be a very, very big pull to the left to be able to make that work. One thing that I like to kind of picture when I'm explaining swing direction would kind of be if I were to draw some little circles of where the club head is, relative from hip to hip. You're going to see that starts really outside that line or above that line, and then it just kind of works underneath that line. So that's generally going to look like a pretty big fade. Again, that's not like it's not allowed to hit a fade. Of course you can hit a fade, but when it gets to be excessive like that, then you're just going to see a lot of variety of misses. If we were to keep this going, you can see that exit, he kind of tries to save it by having that back above the line, but it's almost too late. You can also see this guy's got a lot of speed. So if you have a lot of speed in your club path or swing direction, or that far left or right, it's very, very hard to maintain the ball flight that you want and not see some really, really big misses. If someone was swinging slower, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. So let's jump over to the adjusted swing. And again, this is a brand new client, so I'm really trying to have him leave hitting it significantly better. So let's keep that in mind as we look at this after video. All right, so this is the after video, and sorry, the camera angle moved just a little bit. That's why that yellow line is not perfect. But you can see that the club data and the ball flight are significantly different. So now we're starting to see some balls that are coming out more right. They're obviously coming out much, much higher because the angle of attack isn't so far down. And obviously he's swinging more right. So it's great that we were able to achieve that, but I think the takeaway is, how did we do this? So I did not explain to him very much of his golf swing. What I did was I created an environment for him to swing in that forced him to move the way we want. So I have a video, and I will link that here, but I basically put an alignment stick behind the golf ball, and I had it about 2 feet in the air, and I said, I want you to swing as far right as you can and just miss that stick. The only adjustment we did with his setup was to close his feet, which you can see there are slightly closed, right, relative to that white stick. And then I moved his ball back a little bit because it was just a little bit forward, and if the ball is too far forward, then likely someone's going to swing more left or pull it because it's hard to get to the ball if it's too far forward hitting a draw. And then the only thing else I gave him was, you can see there's an alignment stick out there on the target line. So, in my experience, people respond really well to external cues or visual cues. The last thing that I need to do with this guy is explain to him why he is hitting a fade or what is wrong with his swing. Intellectually, I see tons of people that understand what's wrong with their swing, but when it comes to being able to execute what they need to do, they can't do it. And that is probably the biggest problem I see in golf instruction, is people just telling people what is wrong with their swing, but they're not really able to change it. I would rather be the person that doesn't explain what's wrong in their swing, and I'm able to change it. And this took about 5 minutes to fix. And we actually did it with driver. I will maybe even make a driver video because he left hitting a draw with his driver, which I can promise you this cat has never hit a draw in his life. So the reason I didn't post the alignment stick video is I wanted you to see that at full speed with no training aid, he was able to leave doing this. And that is the other key. If you're taking lessons, and I said this guy has been taking lessons, if you are taking lessons, you need to be able to leave the session doing things at full speed, like this whole thing where we do half speed, or you got people moving you, or you have to use a training aid to do it. Okay, that's great, but is it really going to translate when it comes to that, moment of truth when I have to play? So that's the drill we did. Let's play this swing out, just so you can see visually, like, what is the difference? So if we go back to the first one, and we remember that the handle or the club head was really, really far outside that line. So now you can see that is much more in. Again, I did not tell him to do that. The only thing I said was miss the stick, which intuitively he's going to swing inside. So think of it that way. I could tell him to move the club head more inside, right? Make sure the club head is inside your hands. But I could also just place the stick in the ground and say, just miss the stick. I don't care how much you miss the stick by, which is what I did tell him. The only cue I gave him was I wanted him to add some rotation on the backswing, which is very, very simple for most people to do. Okay, let's keep playing this up. Okay, obviously the club is a little bit more across. We can also see there is a smidge of daylight. We can kind of see between the knees. There's not a ton, but you can see there is a heck of a lot more rotation. So I'd say from this point, when the club is across the line, and again, we've talked about this in previous videos, across the line just means the club is kind of pointed right of target like that. In general, you'll see someone like Bryson have a swing like this. In general, if someone's like that, the club's going to shallow, and it's going to shallow just meaning it's going to be coming closer to that line earlier. We saw from the video before that this player was far too above the line. So what you're going to see is he gets on the line much, much faster earlier on the downswing. There you go. And so now from here, the club can kind of coast into the ball, and the swing direction, the club path are going to be much more neutral. You can see here the swing direction is pretty darn close to zero. And so now we're going to start seeing that the club's coming from the inside, very, very center strike, and the ball is actually starting right of target and drawing. So all that to say, this guy left. Actually, I'll play this video out just so you can see his reaction to this shot here. Massive club twirl. Actually, not massive club twirl, just a lot of swag. So at the end of the day, our role as coaches and you as players is that we need to do things better. We need to hit the ball better. We don't need to take steps back. If we take steps back, I would argue that you're making this far too challenging. Are there guys on the PGA Tour that definitely have to take steps back to find improvement? Sure, I guess. But as a competitive junior who plays every week to 2 weeks, you don't have time to take steps back. And I would say the average adult doesn't really need to take steps back. In general, when I have someone come see me, they leave hitting the ball much, much better. Within 30 to 45 minutes, they're leaving And then it's also important to have a drill. Like he can go do this alignment stick drill, and he will never swing too far left if he does that. As I told him, we got to be careful not to start, overdrawing it. I asked him, has he ever had that as a problem? He said no, so I wouldn't be too concerned with that if I was him. I'm going to see him again in a few weeks, and we'll see, and maybe I'll make another video of kind of what it looks like. So just make sure that you have a very low tolerance for poor ball flight. And if you follow me on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, I post a ton of drills that force the issue. So make sure you're doing something to force the issue with your ball flight and contact. Hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it useful for your own game. I would love you to drop a comment if you did. And if you haven't, please subscribe. I'll keep making these videos. And good luck the next time you go to the driving range.